there.
My name is Cody Schmick. I am one of four owners of Kincaid Brewing Company in Broken Bow, Nebraska. We are a farm-based brewery. We do a lot of our own ingredients right here on the farm. One of the things that's really fun is we tell stories with our beer. Not only do we want people to have the connection with beer and how it tastes and everything that goes into it and the care that we put into brewing it, we want to tell a story behind that. What we've chosen in our storytelling is legends, folklore, all kinds of things, these stories from Nebraska. And we started this process telling a few of these stories, and then we found people had this emotional connection.
To
I am joined by Michael Jasorka. Michael lives, is that how you say it, Michael?
Yep, you
Jasorka?
got
Is that good?
it.
Okay. Michael lives in LA. He is a cartoonist or a graphic
Yep,
novel cartoonist.
yep.
Um, and how me and Michael got together. Actually, Michael, will you just kind of introduce yourself a little bit and tell people a little bit about what you're doing and kind of what your gig is?
Oh, sure, Cody. Well, I'm a transplant from New Jersey. Growing up there, I have quite an artistic family. Went to art school there and came out to LA, and I've been working in the advertising world and making my own comic books since 2006. And I just put out another book on a pinball related comic book, and I'm just keep going away
Yeah.
with my material, and Cody came out to me and reached out to me about a book I created in 2011, and I also did a tour that followed that for this same book that we're going to be talking about, and it's definitely one of my flagship comics. I've probably sold more than of this book than most of mine, and probably because of the popularity within the mutual UFO network, the ufology world, and I'm very proud of it. And
Yeah.
I was happy actually to call Herbert a friend. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's tear
that's
into this. People are probably asking right now, how the heck does beer and comics go together, and how did we come together? So we're releasing a beer on April 1st. We are calling Star Snake Dank IPA. It's a recipe the boys have been working on in the brewery for quite some time. We're really proud of it, and we're excited to share it with our fans and our neighbors. So when I started kind of looking into the story, I've kind of had this story of uh, a alien abduction or UFO sighting that happened right here in Nebraska in my back pocket for actually the last 4 years. We've been doing this brewery for 4 years now, and this is something I never really kind of knew how to fit it in, and so I kind of just started searching and learning more. And there's a lot of folks that even live in this area. So Ashland, Nebraska is right in between Lincoln and Omaha. You pass it every time you go down the interstate there, I-80. Um, and on road 6 and 63, that's where this story took place. So I just felt like this is something that couldn't be passed up. Like I said, I kind of started peeling the layers off of this thing and finding more and more. And I know, Michael, you went down the same road in 2011, and we can talk a little bit about that. But uh, so with one of these layers, as I was looking into this story and trying to figure out more about it, to figure out how we were going to use this in branding this beer, I came across Michael's graphic novel. And so I was like, what the heck is this? I never knew there was a comic book written about a story that happened in Nebraska. And so I got on your website, Michael. I don't even know if I told you this, but I got on your
uh,
website. I think I threw you out an Instagram message, a Facebook message, and an email with
yeah.
my phone number. And I said, hey, man, I own a brewery in Nebraska. We're looking at naming a beer after this story that happened. I would love to chat with you. And man, I don't know if it was, I think it was the same day you might have called me.
Yeah, I
I
think
can't
it
remember how that
was.
first phone call exactly went, but I was like, who the heck's calling me from LA, so so tell me your account of that call if you can remember. I'd like to hear your thoughts and how crazy you thought I was when I first threw that email out at you.
Well, being a young entrepreneur like you are, I knew that there would probably be someone close to my age behind contacting me about such an idea to come out and re-release my book in Nebraska. Um, it's funny that I even was wrapping my mind about doing that over the last couple of years about coming out regardless. My original tour was so much fun, and so getting that email from you, I was just very excited to uh, yeah, see some new fervor in the case, because it is one of the most credible UFO cases because Herbert Shermer was an ex-state patrolman and spent not even that part of his life as a patrolman, but many years after. So quite a guy, and really it really changed the times for a really quiet town for a little while,
Yeah.
and it's always popped up as a lot of people's favorite case. Because there's a lot of credible information that are from it, that's from it, and really actually parallels a lot of other stories. So it's I was quite surprised, but I'm also just down for this journey that comic books have gotten me and brought me, and I was thrilled to see it because it's been 7 years since my creation of this. So
Yeah.
yeah, to get an email like yours was quite excellent.
It did seem like the timing worked out pretty good because, like I told you on that original phone call, when we were first opening the brewery in 2014, I knew this is the direction I wanted to go with our beers and being able to tell that story and have that connection. And so I just started kind of just doing like searching history and folklore and talking to folks that had lived here their whole life. And this story popped up. And like I said, I kind of just put it in my back pocket. And so the timing of this turned out seems to be pretty good. And so I'm excited to
Yeah.
see, kind of how this all comes to fruition. But can you go into a little bit about like when you were going to write this comic and kind of what was that initial spark that you caught your eye that this story would be a good thing to write a comic about or a graphic novel about, and then kind of how that turned into you becoming friends with Herb?
Oh, I'd love to. Well, really, just drawing all day like I usually am. I'm putting on some form of audio, whether it be an audio book to a podcast to whatever I can find, interviews of people. I really went down a lot of a biography kind of road back then, and basically, I've always been into UFOs and the idea of alien life, and I really came across this website where this gentleman had posted a bunch of audio that he had acquired that were public domain, and well, hearing Herbert Shermer's audio uh, and discovering that it was the only one of its kind from this particular officer, and that it was straight from this conference, it had such a charm to the recording. You can hear coughs in the background as audience members are watching him, and really the story that he tells is quite crafted. It's really well put together for a straight, you know, linear narrative as it is. And I bounced it around off of some directors, to say, hey, what do you think if I, did something like a read along book with this UFO conference audio I found? And everybody I'd pitch it off of, they were just like, you have to do it. Like, you just have to do it.
That's
So I
awesome.
said, wow, it would be a really unique challenge too, because I never really, did something like this. So upon finding this beautiful quality audio, I also found, every floor of the craft sketched by Herb, all the crewmen. He drew the propulsion unit about how it flew. Just different lengths of visuals that I could apply to this to make it more, unironic, basically, because I wanted to be as truthful as I could to it, because I knew he was still alive, and I didn't know whether or not and I knew that he didn't really prosper on it because
Right.
there was no books of that he put out or anything
Right.
like that. But there were a good amount of information on him, and a good amount of books that did cover him. So uh, I did find some information, beyond it all when he finally gave me a call after discovering that I made the book through his niece. And his niece had purchased a copy for me off my website, and she had said, "I'm going to try to get this to my uncle." And I was like, I was a little bit, taken back that
Yeah.
somebody found it, and it was
Right.
a family member that was still in touch with him. And I was like,
Yeah.
wow, I cannot wait to hear from him. So
Yeah.
I gave her my number willingly. I think it might have been through Twitter, and um, sure enough, I think it was maybe a month or two that went by, and I got a phone call from him, and I'm still getting goosebumps now, like just hearing his voice, you know, just
Yeah.
like I did.
Yeah.
That book took 6 months to make, so I listened to
Yeah.
that audio quite
A
a
lot.
lot, really put it all together. So to hear his voice finally, I was just blown away,
Yeah.
and not only that, but to hear that he really enjoyed it
That's cool.
was
That's cool.
one of the huge, feathers in the cap with the whole idea,
Right.
and he gave my consent to keep, putting it out there, and
That's cool.
um, yeah, and I consider him a friend. We talked for a few years until his death in 2017. I think he was 71. So, yeah, now to now carry his case like I am with
Yeah.
his words as a read along is quite special.
That's
There's
cool.
not many like it out there, so I'm
You
very
know,
proud to put
I
that
bet
out.
I bet that was a little unnerving because you spent 6 months kind of getting to know this man and getting to know his story and his voice and when he just calls you, it's a little bit like, it's like, I don't know, like you had this emotional connection with him already, but he didn't really know who you were, and so it's, I don't know, there's a
So
little bit of that. Yeah, not very many people get to experience a human interaction like that, which is pretty cool. So
it is. It's surreal, and
yeah, yeah,
so many people in ufology fandom and readership that would have died to talk
yeah,
to him.
yeah,
And it's really cool to be one of the people that have been in contact with him, and I can tell you, and I will tell the people of the audience that come out to our events, further about how he perceived this 50 years after the fact, because he was a 22-year-old,
wow,
right
yeah,
out of the service,
yeah,
uh, you know, in a small town of maybe, I forget, maybe 1,600 people lived in
small, yeah,
the town,
yeah,
and maybe still do. And
yeah,
it's it was a big deal for him to come out and change his life like he did because he was in such a regarded position. You
right.
know.
So what some people probably don't know is that, and this is I've never seen it in a comic book, where you take a clip of sound like this and literally the storyboard goes right along with this. So this comic book is actually told in his own words.
Right.
It's not sensationalized in any way. It's literally his story, and then you wrote these or you drew these the graphics to go with it. And so when you guys, we're gonna have some opportunity for people to be able to get a hold of this book, get to meet Michael, get to ask him some questions. He's coming to Nebraska in April, so but when he stuck to his same story, I mean, he never wavered on this story right up to the day of his passing, correct?
Right, or at least that it grew with him in a more unique way. Singularity with not coming out with being public about it. I mean, he
Sure.
never he never tried to make money from it. But there were
Yeah.
there were there were a few people and players that I will talk about that
Yeah. Cool.
uh, kind of even spawned to where this audio came from,
Okay.
uh,
Okay.
which is quite unique and quite
Yeah.
fun.
I'm looking forward to dive into that a little bit more when you come out to Nebraska. What we're gonna have at Kincaidor on that Monday, April 1st. We're gonna have in Lincoln. We're gonna do kind of a video presentation too. Can you kind of just, without
Yeah.
spilling too much, can you kind of touch on that and what that's gonna look like?
Yeah, I mean, basically, it will be the whole experience of the book. I took the audio and basically timed it frame to frame, as you would be experiencing the read. It plays basically like an animatic would in the storyboard world, which I do a lot of. So the combination of the two is kind of natural for me, and yeah, it's quite a fun experience. This form is very versatile and complex, and yet can be broken down very simply into a movie form like it will be that night. So yeah, it's quite the show.
That'll be fun. So we're bringing a projector, a sound system into Kincaidor that night, and then we are going to do a panel that night as well on that April 1st, which is the day we're releasing the beer. And I'll talk more about that in a second. But what is that panel going to kind of look like, and what can people expect out of that if they come out to Kincaidor? We're trying to pull people out on a Monday night, so I want to give them a good reason to come out.
Well, we're gonna have hopefully two members from the Omaha the Mutual UFO or UFO Study Group. They've been around a long time and contain a lot of Nebraska experts on this case. I'll be joined by one of them who actually had greeted me in Ashland initially in 2012 for my tour and was kind enough to take me to the original site of the encounter and to also give me a plethora of all of his documentation on the case. So, and quite an amazing guy because he's also an aviation expert, and a lot of people who are involved with aviation and propulsion are very much into UFOs and the folklore of that. So. There'll be those two there, and I will also be sharing after the presentation other things that I acquired after the fact of making the book that actually would have made maybe some of my job easier, depending on how you look at it. And one of them is this story actually was graphically depicted in a UFO comic book that's very rare from the 1970s. So
Okay,
I'll
cool.
be showing this as well to show everyone how much maybe that case or this graphic dictation had changed maybe some of Herbert's story or basically maybe where they were getting their referencing from, which is
Sure.
quite interesting. But I'll also talk about Herb's sketches because they're so unique and interesting, especially the propulsion unit and basically what he touches upon is electromagnetism, which is a real thing right now, and
Sure.
people are trying to work out electromagnetism. And he really drew a sketch that looks a lot like a lot of these devices that
That's crazy.
people are looking at now. So yeah, it's I'll be showing a little bit of that, and yeah, just his sketches, everything that I can share around
Sure.
post this and pre creation
Okay.
of December 3rd.
That's
So
cool. That's cool.
yeah,
The other thing is the time. So the name of the comic book is December 3rd, 1967, right?
yeah, an alien
Yeah. So
encounter.
an
It's
alien
quite a
encounter. So, but this was kind of a decade after kind of the whole Roswell thing, and I mean, it seemed like there was a lot of activity in whether it be UFO sightings or
yeah,
claims of a alien abduction or whatever during this time. And do you feel like, I mean, this was kind of during the time where the science fiction genre, I mean, at that point, like the original Star Trek was out, but not much else. I mean, like
yeah,
that next decades, Star Wars was gigantic, and we all know where that went, and there was a lot of these kind of big science fiction movies. Have you found any evidence, and maybe we can talk about this in the talk of some of his experiences or his story spurring into some of this science fiction genre, or whether it's books or movies or whatever. Because his story to me, even though I didn't know all of it until recently, it
mhm,
seems very familiar to me, but it was kind of before all of this other stuff that I grew up with. I was born in '83, and so it was all this stuff that I was growing up with. But his story seemed very almost nostalgic to me, like I knew it already. You know what I mean? And
Wow, yeah,
so I don't know if that makes sense at all, but have you seen any of
sure.
that and evidence of his story maybe influencing the genre as a whole?
Oh yeah, definitely. There's definitely certain parts from being tractor beamed, the bright light idea. There's a device that they use on him that paralyzed him that has been talked about in many cases. Um, what's unique about his case though is that it's not an abduction; it's an encounter because he was never taken away and taken out of Earth's
Right,
realm.
right,
It was merely that they brought him on the craft to give
right.
him a tour. Essentially, they trusted him enough to share a little bit of their world.
Yeah.
And there's a little, there's my own little theory on a little bit of that that actually attaches to a bit of your name as the Star Snake Dank. Is the idea that there's the winged serpent that
Yeah,
these
yeah.
this a patch that's on these aliens' uniforms that attach itself to various things. Even still today,
Okay.
our emergency medical symbol, the cross,
Sure. Yep.
has a winged serpent on it. So the
Yeah.
winged serpent is a deep rooted folklore within ufology. It's quite interesting. And that has other similarities to some stories. But yeah, there's definitely movies that have pulled things. You can tell that, various directors had looked at this case and what had happened in it to therefore, make more accurate kind of, pictations of this or a type of encounter like
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's quite exciting that it was at this forefront of a lot of that,
Right.
and even the biggest idea is that this is the cop case that the government sanctioned committee of UFO specialists from the
Okay.
1950s that ran into the early 1970s. It was one of the only cases of a police officer.
Okay.
So, and those cases had tend to be the most highly, basically captured cases of the times for what was going on. So if you
Sure.
look up anything that's associated to the Condon Committee, that's
Mm-hmm.
CONDON,
Uh-huh.
uh, that is of that elk and that era of credible cases, or at least ones that they tried to bring beyond inconclusive kind of results.
Okay.
But there's some even in Herb's case that we'll talk about that were inconclusive of whether or not that there were radiation at the site and various things. So
Okay.
yeah, there's a lot of speculative information around it, and yet there's a lot of truth that lies into other media, and
Right.
it's just as folklore would be, I guess,
Sure.
in
And
2019.
that image of the UFO and the power line and the kind of the open scape of Nebraska with this cop car and this police officer. I don't know. To me, that image has been a big driver in this whole thing. And I mean, I know it's on the face of your comic. We definitely put it on the label as well, and we wanted to tie that all in with and still keep it within our brand family too. But I knew that kind of snapshot shot image, there's so much that's going on there that just will pique people's interest. And I know once again we are talking about Kincaid Brewing Company's new beer, Star Snake Dank IPA. We're going to be releasing this on April 1st throughout the state. So I'll actually post the accounts. We're going all over the state of Nebraska with this. That first day, we're going to be shipping about 1,000 cases of this beer, but it will be bottled fresh that day. So Michael's going to be flying in to Omaha from LA on that Sunday night. We're going to pick him up. We're going to jet out to the brewery, and we are going to start bottling this beer at 12:01 a.m. on April 1st, and so it'll all be bottled fresh that day. Our distributors have all partnered with us. They're going to have trucks there waiting, whether sleeping in their truck or staying overnight in Broken Bow. We're going to load them up. It's going to go to all these accounts. But then that day we're gonna hit all three Kincaid locations. The Star Snakes, Michael, myself, our beer rep Lori are gonna be hitting Kincaid and Broken Bow, Kincaid and Grand Island, and Kincaid. We're gonna finish that day at Kincaid in Lincoln. You can pre-purchase Michael's comics, so you can guarantee you get one. On online, I'll post the link for that as well. But then
Yeah.
we have some great events after that. I was going to pull up. We're partnering with a couple high Bs, a high B in Omaha at Shadow Lake on Tuesday. Beertopia has partnered with us in Omaha on Tuesday evening, and then we're going to finish the night with a pint night at Crescent Moon in Omaha. Wednesday, the 3rd, is going to be all with Lincoln. So we're High B Lincoln on Holdridge Street, Moran's Liquor. Those guys are always down for stuff like this. And then we're going to finish the night out at the new beer bar in Lincoln Pour. And then Thursday, April 4th, will be Michael's last day with us. But we're going to do High B, Stony Brook back in Omaha, and then finish the night at Growler USA. And from what I've heard at Growler USA, and we're still kind of figuring this out, some folks from the UFO Society of Iowa are going to join us as well. So we're still kind of getting some of the details worked out on that. But Growler USA has partnered with us to kind of have that final event. And Michael, you'll be flying out the next day then, right?
Yeah. It'll be a short but sweet
Yeah.
experience for sure.
Well, we're gonna have a ton of fun. Do you got anything else to add for this video? And otherwise, we hope everybody will be making their way out to one of the events to meet Michael and snag one of these comic books.
Yeah, or snag it early and come out,
Yeah, yeah,
because we don't know if we're gonna have copies by the
right,
whatever event. So
right,
uh,
right.
yeah, if you want to come out and have a good time, learn about a unique case, this is one of the best.
And
So
we can do it with a beer in our hand. It's gonna be a ton of fun. So,
absolutely, yeah.
well, I appreciate you doing this interview with me, Michael, and we'll look forward to that first week in April. So.
My pleasure, Cody.